morning. It's Tuesday. I'm Tim. This is a recording or streaming of my workouts. Doing a body transformation this year. The thing that sets this body transformation apart from other ones is that I'm not using any sort of supplements, so no protein supplements, no like protein shakes, protein powders, no BCAAs, no pre-workouts, nothing extra. Just trying to get everything, all my nutrients from the food that I eat. I'm not opposed to supplements. I just want to take a year to see if it's really necessary for me to take supplements to hit my current workout goals. Secondary reason is that one of my kids started preschool, and preschool is expensive. So cutting out supplements saves me at least $100 a month. That's $1,200 a year, and in this economy, every little bit helps. So, um, going to be doing shoulders today. Gonna be a lot of fun. Let's get to it. Gonna start with warming up with the 10 pounds with the lateral raises. I had a super not fantastic night of sleep. One of my kids woke me up like multiple times. First time was around like 11:30. They woke me up and they were in their room playing with their toys. That was fun. And then the second time, I was like holding them in bed, and I woke up and they were back to playing with their toys, and it was at like 12:30, and they were just restless. I don't even know when they finally went to sleep. It was a lot of fun. Very exhausting night. The joys of parenting. I feel like today is going to be a very long day. Oh. It'll be okay. I'll get through it. And it's not. It is an unusual night lately. It hasn't been like that very much. I don't know why last night was so crazy for them. So this week, going to be making going up a level with the lateral raises. Excuse me. I've been doing the 20 pounds was the top of the iceberg, the top of the peak for me. Up to this week, 20 pounds, doing 3 sets of 15, but this week being moving up to 25 pounds. I'm sorry, the last 2 weeks I did 5 sets of 15 with the 20 pounds. So now it's time to move up in weight. And I'm going to be knocking out the 5 sets of 15 with the 25 pounds is the new goal. Today I'm shooting to try and do it 3 times, or as many times as I can do it. All right. Well, that was not easy. But you know what it is? It's a starting point. And it's just an opportunity. There'll be plenty of opportunity for it to get easier as I go along. I just gotta keep in mind that easy is not the name of the game. This is when I know, like, keeping in mind past experiences, that it will be easier over time. This is not the end. Give me like a month and a half. And it won't be easy, but it'll be a lot easier. I won't struggle through one set. Hopefully in a month and a half I can bust out, 5 sets. We'll see. It's funny how fast it can go or slow. So again, this is the 25 pounds, 11.34 kilograms. Just did 1 set of 15. I'm going to try for as much as I can of another set. that's 12. So one set of 15, one set of 12. This is the first week of doing the 25 pounds, 11.34 kilogram dumbbells for the lateral raise. When I was doing sets of 10, I could get through over 3 sets with a 30 pounds. But increasing the 15 reps definitely lowered how much I could get through. So we're gonna move on down to the 20 pounds. That's 9.07 kilograms. And do some more sets at that level. That's the thing to keep in mind when you're working out is like you hit a new level, or you finish, like for me, doing the 5 sets of 15 with the 20 pounds was the goal. And you move up to the next one. And the next one makes you feel weak again. What's up, Plosh? Plosh says hi. How are you, man? Good. Good. I haven't seen you around in a while. Hope all is well with you. How are things in Saudi Arabia these days? Oh, Posh says is well, thanks. Like always, feels like the inside of a furnace. Oh yeah, I can't imagine. And this last week here, it's been about 35 degrees Celsius. A couple times over like 100 degrees Fahrenheit. It's like 35 degrees Celsius. But it's not bad. I have a good AC in my house. Speaking of ACs, did you ever get the AC in your car fixed? That's gotta be rough if you're driving around with no AC. Still. Let's see. But tea is good with that weather. Yeah, I fixed it. Good, I'm glad you fixed it. Man, I used to live in Hainan in China, and it's like constantly over 100 degrees there. And you go outside, and within minutes, your shirt is just getting soaked in sweat. And it's humid there, which means there's a lot of like bacteria in the air. So the second you step outside and your shirt gets wet, you like start to stink, and there's nothing you can do about it. There's no amount of cologne or deodorant that you can put on to stop from your like clothes smelling bad. You get used to it. The hard part is or the different part is coming from America, primarily everyone wears deodorant. A lot of people wear cologne and stuff. But where I was in China, like no one really wore deodorant, and very little amounts of like any sort of perfume or anything. So if you were on a bus and it was like 100+ degree day, that whole bus would just smell so bad. Everything would stink. It was definitely took some getting used to. Bosh says, "Thank God you survived that." Yeah, the worst of the worst for me in China was it was like in 2002 or when SARS had its first outbreak in China, and me and my brother, I was 17, my brother was 16. We took a trip by ourselves from the southern part of China to Beijing, and we were on the train. And when Chinese people are on the train, typically they don't bathe, um, at least from this region, and they don't really wash up in the bathroom. So everybody smells really bad. And you've been on that train. I know it was like over 24 hours, and we got off. And I told my brother, "Hey, let's wait till everyone gets off the train, and then we'll get off, and we won't have to be in the crowd." And completely forgot that they were going to be checking everyone's temperatures when you got off the train. So we waited till everyone got off, and then we got off, and then we were stuck in this, small subway area with all of these people. And not only is it people that haven't bathed in, over 24 hours, it's people not wearing deodorant, it's people not wearing any sort of perfume, and then a lot of them have animals with them, and like chickens in cages and birds and ducks. So you have the smell of their cages, and it was the worst smell I've ever been like a part of. And then on top of that, like the heat from everyone's bodies and the animals just filled up this whole area. And it was the single worst smell. And the only time I've ever felt like, claustrophobic or like, being crushed. That was the worst. And thankfully we got through that. But that was that was absolutely horrible. You do get used to it though. Like all those kinds of things you get used to, and then it's normal and like not a big deal. And you learn, you know, Posh says for me, I can't. Yeah. Well, you guys have, correct me if I'm wrong, but Saudi, I feel like Saudi Arabia is known for like perfumes and oils and spices and things that make everything smell better. More aromatic food that like smells better. And that could be a cliche, but that's seems to be consistent. Bosch says, yes, we do. Yeah. There were some things about China though that was really interesting and like taught you a lot. Like I'd hate for it to be like, oh, it just smells bad, but no, like the food in China is really, really good. And there's such a wide range of food in China because it's such a big area and so many different like people groups. Food there is pretty awesome. A lot of spices in the food, variants in cooking styles. I really like the use of peppers that they do in like Beijing and Mongolia a lot. And lamb. We don't do a lot of lamb here, but they did up there, lamb and goat. I miss that. Posh says, yeah, I like the green spice. They do. I forget its name. Yeah, that's knowing the names for all the dishes gets hard because you're learning Chinese at the same time. And a lot of times if you're out with just Chinese that don't speak English very well, they can only tell you the Chinese name, and you learn so much you forget it. I'd like to visit Saudi Arabia. I'd like to visit the Middle East and travel around. If I go though, if I ever go, I'd like it to be to visit someone I know there. I feel like traveling is better when you're visiting someone in their hometown, and someone that lives there can show you everything versus a guidebook. It's nicer to see everything from a local person's perspective and from a friend. The best like tours I've ever done in the world were always with friends. I've heard that if you go to Egypt and you take tours, like it's better to get someone that's like a local from there and not one of like museum trained people to take you around. You hear better stories if it's a local. Well, says I don't know, to be honest, because I don't travel a lot. Well, at least you're honest about it. I find when I travel, I like to do it visiting friends. In China, if you're traveling, it's best if you travel with either a party member or someone with connections to the Communist Party. It's safer and it's better. If you don't know China very well or you don't speak Chinese, it's best if you know some communist official. It used to be though, traveling in China, at least for Americans, was like very safe. You might get your passport stolen if you're not careful, but for the most part, people would leave Americans alone. But I know that that's like started to change, unfortunately. Hmm. I think I think when I lived and traveled in China was probably one of the better times. They were very open, and there wasn't a lot of problems with foreigners. And then, I guess in 2016 and 17, things started to change, and hostilities towards Americans started to pick up. And it's not bad. Like it's you know, China, like a lot of countries, has like a love-hate relationship with Americans. They will hate the government, but they'll love like our movies, they'll love our video games, they'll love our TV shows, they'll love our style, our music, but they'll hate our government, and China, they're good about separating those two out for the most part. The difference between the American government and the person, they don't judge you as harshly based on what your government does. Unfortunately, Americans traveling in China sometimes are not the best people either, though. So some people will just not like Americans because of the ones that they've seen. All right, Posh. Got one more set of lateral raises, and then we'll move to shoulder press. Anyone watching travel a lot or have any aspirations to go to different countries? Sometimes I feel like the people that travel the most are like Europeans. Mostly because it's easy in Europe to go from country to country to country. But it seems like Europeans tend to be pretty well traveled. I recommend traveling, but I recommend going someplace for a while and visiting for an extended stay. Really take some time to learn a different culture. It's very easy to have misconceptions about a culture unless you've stayed there for a while. We would have people visit us in China, and they would just formulate a lot of misconceptions about who people are. And sometimes it's not their fault. they make the mistake a lot of times of thinking that people like them and approve of them when they don't realize that they only like them and approve of them because they're spending an exorbitant amount of money. And the person's not telling them that their behavior is bad, because that would either not be good manners on their part, or they they don't want to make them upset because they don't want them to stop spending all the money. One of the hard parts about China is that they have a culture where everyone is about saving face. And part of saving face is that you don't openly correct people. If you have a problem with someone, you very subtly explain your problems to someone else, who will explain to someone else, and eventually it may get back to you that someone has a problem with something you do. But it can take a long time. And that's always a bummer when you're in China, is when you find out that you're doing something that's insensitive or incorrect, but no one's told you for a while because they just don't want to insult you. But meanwhile, you have bad behavior without realizing it. So, and it can be something subtle. Like in America, we like to cross our legs and put our foot up. But in China, it is incredibly disrespectful and rude to show someone the bottom of your foot. But if no one tells you, you may not know for a while. You just have to really pay attention and hope you can catch the cues that you're doing something wrong. Another one that's like, thankfully someone explained to me, but there's like a whole protocol for how to handle someone's business card in China. Like in the US, if someone gives you a card, you like take it in one hand, look at it for a second, and then you might not even look at it. You might just put it in your wallet. And in China, that's like where I was at, is very bad. Like you're supposed to take the card, hold it in two hands, you look at it, you read the information, and then you put the card on like the table in front of you, like to honor it, and you leave it there for a non-specific amount of time, and then you pick it up and put it in your wallet or something when you leave. It's a whole transaction. And if you've never seen it before, you just have no idea. The other one I've said before is, in China, you call people like this. You never call people like this. If you gesture like this to someone, it's incredibly disrespectful. It's calling them like a dog or a slave. And then you never put your chopsticks stabbed into the rice, like straight up and down. That's bad. You don't write anyone's name in red ink. In China, that's a bad one. You try not to you're not supposed to use red ink, period, but you definitely don't write someone's name. And the fun one I learned was you don't give knives to your friends. Now, the hard part about China is that none of those things are necessarily consistent through the whole country. Because in the US, we think of China as just one small, or not small, but just one group of people, but it's not. It's like a whole lot of different groups of people with separate cultures, separate languages that have been, united to speak one language, but they have their own, their own viewpoints throughout the country. And it changes a lot depending on how close you are to Beijing. So if Beijing is the political center of China, and so for instance, China is supposed to be atheistic. You're not really supposed to practice religion of any kind there. You can practice religion, but if you wanted to be a member of the government, you can't. So if you wanted to be a party member and have any sort of control in the government, you have to be an atheist. So when you're in Beijing and around Beijing, there's a lot less religious freedom because people adhere very strictly to that atheistic rule. But the farther you get away from Beijing, the more religious freedom you'll find. People loosen up. Like where I was at, ancestral worship is still like a huge, huge thing. But if you're in Beijing, you may not see ancestral worship as much. I spent a spring festival with a family once that was the dad was a communist